Wonderful. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our session, Inclusion Drives Innovation, the Value of By and For Product Design. We know you have so many amazing options at MozFest, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. For the next 45 minutes or so, my colleagues and I will take you on a product design journey, one that some of you may recognize, but despite the similarities, the design process behind these products is a little different, only in the sense that it prioritizes the perspectives of people who are all too often forgotten or ignored, people with disabilities. Before we dive into today's discussion, we're going to start with some introductions for our presenters. I'll kick things off. My name is Aaliyah Thomas. I use she, her pronouns. I am a light-skinned woman in her mid-20s. Today, my hair is pulled back into a low bun, and I have on a teal, gray, and white striped scoop neck shirt. And my background behind me is my blurred home office, which is a gallery wall and a window, which you may see my cat poking her head through every once in a while. But I have the pleasure today of representing Ability Central, a nonprofit philanthropy organization based in Oakland, California, that provides funding to other nonprofits whose products and services benefit individuals with communications disabilities. Today, I'm joined here by representatives from two of our grantees, PeerBots and UDescribe. So I'll go ahead and let my friends from PeerBots introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Molly Rarick Day. I am a light-skinned woman with short brown hair wearing a white sweater. My background is blurred. It is a wood-paneled wall. I wear many hats, and today I am representing PeerBots as the executive director. I am the only person at PeerBots who is not a tech person, so I come from education. I live in Mammoth Lakes, California, and we have people all over the country. My pronouns are she and her, and I am excited to be here. Next is going to be my colleague, John.
Hello there, everybody. My name is John Choi. I am a he, him. I am a 28-year-old Asian guy. I have a black eye and I'm light-skinned. I am the secretary and lead tech guy of PeerBots. The background that you're seeing is my home office. You'll see lots of random cool tech equipment like monitors and keyboards and controllers and tablets and all sorts of cool things.
All right. Thank you so much from our friends at PeerBots. And UDescribe?
Wonderful. I'll go first if that's okay, Yelmi. My name is Charity Pitcher Cooper. My pronouns are she, they. And I'm a light-skinned woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing cat-eye glasses. And behind me is a American traditional tattoo logo with the artist name underneath, Arnold. And I am representing UDescribe, which is a joint project between Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute and the wonderful computer science program at San Francisco State University. And I'm very pleased to introduce our partner, Ilmi Yoon.
Thank you, Charity. Hi, everyone. My name is Ilmi Yoon. My pronoun is she, her. I'm the Asian woman, about 50 years old, and I have a long black hair right now, and my background is the rose garden I grew for 10 years. I moved out of the house, so I'm keeping it as my background. And I'm a professor in computer science department at San Francisco State University. I joined the UDescribe team since 2015, and about 20 master students of our school have been working on UDescribe since then. And I'm happy to introduce Antonio as one of our users of the UDescribe.
Thank you, Yomi. My name is Antonio Guimares, pronouns he, him. I am a blind guy and light skin, a white person with green eyes, short brown hair. I'm wearing a white shirt. And in my background is just a wall with a portrait of Louis Braille. I studied interactive telecommunications at New York University. And currently I'm an accessibility consultant for a bank in the Midwest. I live in Minnesota, and I'm also the founder of Access to Places. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves today. Ability Central is honored truly to partner with our grantees for this presentation, as this is the next step in a much larger vision to transform the field of communications access. Since 2012, we've brought this vision to life by funding communications access projects, sharing resources for people with disabilities and the groups that work with them, and raising awareness of communications disabilities in other communities so that everyone can exercise their human right to receive information and express themselves. Now, I'm sure some of you may be wondering, well, what is a communications disability? And this term refers to not just one specific disability, but a larger community that encompasses a variety of diagnoses and medical conditions. The uniting factor being that members of this group do not rely on speech alone to be heard or understood. It includes people who are deaf or hard of hearing and use sign languages, lip reading, or other signing systems to communicate, or folks that are blind and use Braille to access printed materials, and those that use alternative and augmentative communication systems like tablets with type-to-talk software, letterboards, picture boards, and more. With that little bit of background information under our belts, I wanted to turn things over to our panelists and the products they're here representing today. So to start our discussion, can you tell us a little bit about the product, the history or the inspiration behind the idea, and just lay down any background information that we might need so that we're all on the same page for the rest of our conversation today. How about we start with PeerBots?
All right, so PeerBots is a research-backed open source digital platform for Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, and Linux desktop and mobile devices that creates engaging interaction for people of all ages. You designed it to be as easy to use and free as possible so it can be applied in educational, recreational, creative, and therapeutic contexts. Now, it originally started as a research project of a master's student named Aubrey Schick at Carnegie Mellon University's Human Computer Interaction Institute. This is a collaboration with a local nonprofit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called Fine Art Miracles, to make social robotics more accessible to everyone. We've been doing this since 2010. I only joined the team in 2016. Now, our team values input from users and stakeholders and community members, and we're proud to work with individuals and groups from a wide variety of backgrounds to continue improving this unique and effective tool. That was a super quick introduction. Thank you.
You describe? Or
well, we're on.
Yes.
Wonderful. And so You Describe is a free tool for anyone in the world with internet and a microphone to add audio descriptions to YouTube videos. It is the invention of Dr. Joshua Mile, who at the time was a blind scientist at Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute. This project was started in 2013. I joined the team in 2017, and became project manager in 2019. And really what it is to allow people to create descriptions for videos that would otherwise remain undescribed, either due to time or due to importance or due to cost. And our big goal has always been that this was built from the ground up for people in the BVI community, the blind and visually impaired community, for them, by them. And of course, as it has gone for 10 years, and happy birthday, You Describe, other groups with disabilities have found it incredibly useful as well. So we're super proud of this project and our partnership with San Francisco State University and Ability Central.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of descriptions for You Describe and PeerBots. I know that we had some videos to play, so I'm going to cue those up and play them right now. Both are under 2 minutes long, just quick descriptions of the products themselves to give you a good idea of what we mean when we're talking about here today. So give me 1 second and I will get those queued up for us all today.
While you're queuing up, I'd like to give just a little background of the video. In it, you will actually get to see our pieces, the product of our new interface, which is launching soon, which will show you Infobot, which is a way for people viewing the descriptions to ask a question and get an answer back, as well as our AI-mediated text on screen capture and our human-in-the-loop AI-created audio descriptions.
Awesome. All right.
I don't think the audio is playing.
Great. Who uses UDescribe?
There you go.
I think the value of UDescribe is that it doesn't have to be professional and it doesn't require expertise and anybody can use it.
Audio description is primarily used by blind and visually impaired people, but it has been significantly useful to people with autism spectrum disorders, English language learners, and other people who benefit from seeing what's on the screen at the same time as they hear about it.
Josh Mealy, inventor of UDescribe.
One of the most effective uses of audio description is for education, and teachers might find themselves in a position of having to describe videos for their students.
Tim Su, teacher of the visually impaired. At UC Berkeley, there is an English professor who encouraged her students to use UDescribe as a way of honing their creative writing skills.
We really want everybody to think of themselves as having a hand in audio description.
Video content is just exploding in the classrooms, and now teachers are creating their own videos for their students. And UDescribe is just a tool that extends the capacity of YouTube. It's really built for social media. It's a community of practice related to video description and ultimately information accessibility.
Milo. What color is Milo?
White.
Is Milo healthy now?
Yes. A close-up of a dog laying on a bed.
After getting pain meds, antibiotics, and a bath, Milo started feeling better.
Milo.
UDescribe logo, text on screen. Created with support from the Disability Communications Fund, dcfund.us, and the Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute, www.ski.org, featuring Dr. Joshua A. Mealy.
We can't hear you. Oh, here we go. I think the audio is there. Yeah. Yeah, just Isla's video, audio is out.
I just have to ditch my headset this morning and be a little flexible. So it is what it is. Alrighty. That was our description. That was our video for UDescribe. And I believe we have one more for PeerBots as well. So I want to share that with everyone. Let me go ahead and cue this one up. To John, Molly and John, do you have anything that you'd like to say before we go ahead and do the PeerBots product demonstration or video?
Now, we don't actually have a voiceover for our video, so I can just talk about what's happening inside of the video while the video is playing.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, so here you can see the PeerBots logo. The PeerBots is designed to work on Android and iOS mobile devices. It does have an account feature. You can create an account to enable remote control functionality. There are two devices of interest. First device of interest is the controller. Controller allows you to create your own templates to control a robot face. Now, the robot face can be done on something like a smartphone. So you have two devices. On the right side, you see a face. Left side, you see the controller. So the operator can push buttons on the template to operate the face and make the robot face say things. Each button can be customized with things like speech, color, title, and emotion, as And we also have the ability to have multiple different templates on the same device. The app is free and you can get it on Android and also iOS.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that impromptu audio description, if you will, which, little keeping things accessible.
Of course.
For our purposes of our conversation today. Do we have any questions? I did have a moment for questions from the audience at this time. But if there are none, we'll go ahead and keep on moving forward in our presentation. All right. Well, with all of our background information out of the way, we can go ahead and get started on the meat of our conversation today, which really is about product design and disability inclusion product design. So to kick things off, we'll talk about just that. We've both kind of have already touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive into it a little bit deeper in terms of how people with disabilities have been involved with the project and what does prioritizing disability inclusion do for a product? How does it influence the design process?
Well, I would love to go first if nobody minds.
Sure.
Very important for the development of UDescribe is, of course, our founder, Dr. Josh Miele. And most of the products that we try to put out for the Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute, RERC, are just that. They are user-informed, person-informed technology things that are conceived of and met with at every step the people who are going to benefit from them. And I love UDescribe so much because it is definitely one of our big successes. And of course, at every step, when we change an interface or we develop a new portion of it, we, from the very beginning, include people to give us feedback on even our sort of first fledgling attempts. So Antonio, who is here with us today, was actually an early user of the interface in 2014 for UDescribe. And he also joined us 2 years ago for a product study using our new interface with the Infobot and the screen capture. And so we're very pleased to be able to bring people in from the community and really do nothing without the people who are benefiting from UDescribe.
Wonderful.
This is Antonio, and as part of that group of early users, I thought it was a pretty exciting thing to have. Now I could take any YouTube video that was just music and pretty entertaining and tag a friend to go ahead and describe that for me. And I could have that at the tips of my fingers. And I've tried not to a great amount of success just yet, but I've also tried to get visual interpreters to help me see what was in the video and create my own descriptions. But because of computer technology being what it is, and when you press play and record, there's a lag there. But it's pretty exciting to have that. And I remember being at an unconference back around 2014 and bringing UDescribe to the people who were attending there. It was nice.
Wonderful. And
to share.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Antonio. Having your perspective here really does make this conversation so much more rich. And
I add one more things on top of it, that when I saw the Josh Miele's presentation in 2015, it was a lot of eye-opening for me, and I joined the team and I started working together to create mobile devices. And all of students participating in this project, they are learning about screen readers and accessibility a lot of those education, together. And then we had the frequent meetings with Josh to, what we have been developing. Initially when kids or people are describing video that with very good intention, they like to contribute, but cognitive load has been pretty heavy. So we wanted to use latest machine learning to create some of the prompt so that the sighted volunteers can revise it. And we started doing that. And Josh has been kind of sharing his hope that when narrations are controlled or decided by the describers, but it is better to be very concise. And then the blind users can ask questions, like they can control when to ask and what to ask by being able to interact with the AI. So that's the infobot that Charity was talking about, and it was briefly shown in the Milo's video.
Awesome. Thank you so much for adding that. Definitely having that description of the infobot is really helpful, and honestly, that it's so cool to reduce the cognitive load and use technology that is kind of been has been intimidating, I think, and very there's still so many unknowns, and using it in a way that genuinely does good in the world and provides access. So love to see it. And what about at PeerBots? How has disability inclusion influenced the trajectory of the project so far?
Yeah, thank you. So PeerBots in its current iteration is really young. We're a baby organization. And so part of what we have been working on over the past about year and a half that I've been involved, almost 2 years now, is involving people with disabilities in all areas of PeerBots. So in leadership, as advisors, certainly the people who are using the product in school districts and other places. Most of those students have disabilities as well. So collecting data from them and their teachers. And right now with the funding from Ability Central, part of what we're doing is creating content that people can use within PeerBots. So for example, the content of a picture book for younger children. And part of that is making sure that the people who are creating content or sort of translating an existing thing into that content, and then the people who are vetting it are also people with disabilities. So part of that is bringing on people as project advisors who are paid for that position. We're not asking people to volunteer simply because they have a disability. We want to make sure people get paid fairly for what they're doing, as well as what we are doing is representing people with them rather than for them. John, did you want to add anything?
You're on mute, John.
I think that was perfect, Molly.
Wonderful. All right. So it seems like I know you both have just shared with you described disability inclusion has been a priority from the jump, and with PeerBots, that's something that has become more of a priority over the last several years. But one of the things that I know is a concern within the community is this idea of tokenism, or only bringing on people with disabilities to satisfy a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, or only for the sake of good publicity, or to look good, instead of genuinely valuing the contributions of the disabled person as a team member in the same way that you would everybody else. So I'm curious, what are the practices that you all engage in to avoid tokenism in your product development?
I'll answer that for you describe. One of the ways that we do that is just to be steadfast. It's actually my job. I consider it a very important part of my job in every meeting. As ILMI students will attest, they'll build something and I will ask the question, did you test this with the screen reader? And when they say not yet, or I'll do that when it works, I look slightly disapproving. and say, you need to do that now. And I think we also, within our development, I think a lot of people want to kind of present well-intentionedly want to like present a gift. Like, we're going to do all this work for you, and then we're going to present a final product. And it takes a lot of courage to show your sort of your baby steps, your fledgling flight, things that have flaws and warts, and say, this is what we have now. Like, we need your feedback before we go any further, not because we're stuck, but because we know that anything that we put out is going to be flawed at this level. And the faster we can get genuine feedback, the better that our product is going to be. And both San Francisco State University and Smith Kettlewell take that obligation incredibly seriously. And we're very lucky to have a huge pool of people to reach out to and say, we're really sorry the AI on this sucks right now, but next year it's going to be great if we can get your feedback today. And just to make that a constant part of the process. And of course that benefits the product, but it also benefits everybody on the team. Because once you start having those questions at meetings and saying, no, you have to get people in, at the ground level, not just as an afterthought after something is already built, that changes the way that everyone works on that process, does for any project in the future. So all of ILMI's master's students, ILMI herself, myself, that the first thing in the meeting is, where is the person, who is using this product, who we need to have their input right now today.
This is Antonio. And to that, I would add that, in the age of user experience design, you have to bring in co-designers just to so you don't have another, say, guide dog robot or radar cane for the blind. There are many of those out there that get created. Products kind of like that we don't necessarily need or want. And that's an example of the type of product that could be created without us. And when there's a blind person who creates the tool and involves the other blind people who are users or people with disabilities or people of color and women and whoever the user is for that product, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate what you both have kind of touched on the same thing of, Charity said it first, of creating this gift for folks, and the idea of creating, which oftentimes the gift, and Antonio kind of touched on this as well, isn't really a gift because no one asked for it. Like, why give someone something useless when you could give them what they asked for and work with them to create something that is actually useful to the community? And I think that is it's a trend across all disabilities. It's not just with radar canes and robot guide dogs, but it's with talking gloves that translate ASL, and with other types of technology that, from an able-bodied perspective, seems great, but from the perspective of the disabled person who would have to use this technology every day or interact with it on an everyday basis, it's better. It may be better than nothing, but it doesn't hit all of it doesn't do what you need it to. And I think that that's something that I'm speaking to the able-bodied people in the room at this point. We need to remember our perspective is not the only one to design from. And it looks like we have a raised hand from Tim Jin. So I will go ahead, and if you can unmute yourself, go for it, Tim.
Hi, thank you for this presentation so early in the morning. I have a question for all of you all. I clearly understand what you are doing with accountability and disability, and it's almost, but how are you bringing accessibility to the mainstream culture without having the disabled label? For example, We are always talking about inclusion and disability, and unfortunately this is a trending topic. But if you look in your kitchen, we all have a can opener, and that is a universal design without disable logo. Where do you see your product being used without having a stigma of being disabled?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Tim. And it kind of touches on this idea of the curb cut effect, which alludes to the concept that things that are maybe created by and for people with disabilities have applications outside of the disabled community. And getting over the stigma or over the hurdle of the attitude and prejudice toward disability and seeing a product for all of its uses rather than maybe its original intended use. And it goes both ways. Things that were created for one community in one community can be applicable in a totally different one. So how do we bridge that gap? I really love this question, Tim. Thank you.
I would love I'm never afraid to talk first while everybody gathers their thoughts. So there's a very wonderful, very simple toggle at UDescribe, and that is the turning on and the turning off of the audio description. And when people make audio descriptions, we ask them to put up the UDescribe version rather than a YouTube version and then a UDescribe version, because within the UDescribe version is the accessibility that people are looking for. There are captions at YouTube that are on the screen. And when you share that first, then people have the choice of whether they would like to turn the audio descriptions on or the audio descriptions off. And UDescribe in and of itself, while it was built as a product for the BVI community, has really been pushed all over the world, under many different uses. While it is an accessibility tool, it does exactly what YouTube does without an accessibility label forward.
This is Antonio, and I would, I guess, look at it as somewhat differently as well. Well, UDescribe doesn't have the word blind anywhere in it, for instance, but I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with going with a disabled first label, because I don't see blindness as having a stigma, to me anyway. So I'm myself proud to be blind, and there's the whole debate of people first language, which is unyielding, and then disabled first language, which I think pays respect to the person's full being, including their disability. So there's that perspective as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for adding. I really appreciate it. That when the conversation is so good, it's really hard to just jump off with with a response, but I am speechless, but in a good way. So I appreciate everyone's contributions today. Do our friends from PureBots have anything to add about applications outside of disability settings or disabled settings, or kind of transcending that barrier of that the stigma of disability brings with it?
Yeah, thank you. This is Molly. Definitely all the things that people have said. Universal design is really important, and we know that it enables all people to access things. And it's good to see you, Tim. Our mission really is to be universally accessible, and not. It's our product as a social robot is definitely applicable to people with disabilities in all settings, but also in settings of customer service and gathering information for people who are engaging in remote education or therapy. And one personal example is I have a 5-year-old niece who lives 3,000 miles away. Once we have some picture books and things loaded into PeerBots, I think it'll be a blast to interact with her. She does not have a disability to my knowledge as of yet. And to be able to sort of share that interaction with her, I think will be really fun. Along with all those other applications that we talked about, and having something that people can use without worrying about a stigma, and just, having something that's accessible for everybody.
Yeah. Awesome. I love thinking outside the box and using these products in ways that they may not be designed to or intended upon, but, I think that that's the wonderful thing about being an individual and being able to having the ability to be creative and use things how they best fit us. And this, we've kind of already touched on some of the priorities that it sounds like you have while you're doing product, while we're designing these products, whether it be disability inclusion or prioritizing universal design. There's some key things that I think are jumping out just in our conversation as it's happened already, but I'm curious as to what other priorities you all may have when creating accessible or assistive technologies.
And can I go back to your earlier question about avoiding tokenism? Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
This is Molly again. So something that comes up for me is that we at PeerBots are taking on learning about accessibility ourselves and learning from people, instead of simply saying, hey, tell us what to do, and putting all the burden of that on the people with disabilities that we do want to learn from and with. So being able to find resources on our own, and say, hey, do you think this is a good idea, rather than what should we do as a blank question.
Yeah, taking that responsibility and that onus is a large undertaking, but it's a rewarding one. I definitely have done the same thing for myself over the last couple of years. And I'm always amazed at how much I don't know, but I don't know why I'm continually amazed, because it should be obvious that I know nothing at this point, but I know enough to be with you here all today. So clearly I'm doing something right. So thank you for kind of touching on that with tokenism again. I really appreciate it. Kind of shifting gears back to some of the other priorities that we have with avoiding, on top of avoiding tokenism within our disability inclusion and prioritizing nothing about us without us forward philosophy. What are the other priorities that you all have, or that you all try to keep in the foreground while you are creating and working on these products?
This is Charity. And I think our big thing is that, oh my gosh, it can't suck. So many things are, are thought of and have, people included. And then, before they can, really get good, people lose interest, and they're like, oh, this was fun for a year or so, and now, where this is going to fade into the background. And so it can't just be okay. It can't just be good enough. That we are always striving for something that is free and robust, and doesn't break down very much. We would say like never, but technology is what it is, and that it's constantly evolving, and that there's always someone saying this is okay, but what I really need is this, and having the ability to be like, oh, how do we miss that? Like, of course we should have that, and just being willing to be wrong and say, wow, we screwed that up. And we are going to move forward and do better.
Wow. I love the humility and authenticity with which you bring to product design. Everything that a lot of the things that you've talked about have really just been about being okay with making a mistake or being okay with being wrong about something and taking that feedback from a person and not being butthurt that someone didn't like what you did or it didn't work for them in the way that it intended. I know that it can be hard to put our pride aside sometimes, and especially with something that you've been working on so hard and it's like your baby and you've been working on this thing tirelessly, and when it's not received the way that you want it to be or the way that you had envisioned, it can be a little burst to the bubble. But I love the authenticity with which you approach everything. So wonderful. What about our friends at PeerBots? What are some of the priorities that you all have?
Of course. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves at PeerBots is we try to make everything that we can and open source. So for those of you who don't know what open source means for all the software that you create, you release all of the source code so that anybody can actually take a look at how it's built. And in fact, if they wanted to, they can effectively clone PeerBots and make their own version of PeerBots as well from the very source level, if they so choose. So that makes the software modular, it's accessible. So there's another research lab that wants to use our work and build upon it and expand upon it, making it open source makes that possible. So that's a very big priority for us. Another thing that's very important to us is making the data collection method transparent as well. So as we all know, there's a very big stick against the data mining practices of these big tech companies and how opaque they're about it. For us, because our code is all open source, you can see exactly what we're collecting and how we're analyzing that data as well. Now, just to show you all, we have no hands hidden behind our back, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We function in a world that kind of functions under the scarcity mindset, where once you have something, it's very encouraged to keep it to yourself and to not share. And you all are doing the exact reverse of that, the opposite, and doing something completely innovative and new and making sure that it's available not only to the folks who need it, but to the folks who want to take it and build upon it and do something completely different, or maybe exactly the same, but with a little tweak, or whatever it may be. I can appreciate that, the willingness to share and the willingness to allow others to be creative with what you've done, which is, again, hard. It takes a lot to put your pride aside, again, and be authentic and genuinely come from a place of wanting to create something that improves the experience for other people rather than for monetary gain. And, if you create something that improves the experience for other people and you put a little cash in your pocket at the same time, that's glorious, but it's not always the priority, which I think is something that in this discussion you all have shown time and time again today, which is great. But we are winding down on our presentation here, and one of our last questions was talking about using these products in educational settings, which we've already kind of touched on today. And it looks like Charity dropped in the chat that it's PeerBots is open source, as well as UDescribe, and Charity dropped the GitHub link to the UDescribe data. So go forth and be merry with that. And our last question that I have is, what's next with these projects? Where do you all see these? Where do you see them going? What's coming down the pipeline for you all?
So maybe for UDescribe that I can answer. And also just the one point about the universal design aspects of it, that as a non-native speaker, when I came to United States, and I was so happy to see all these captions on the TV, so I could understand a lot better. So that's unintended, but a lot of these non-native speakers appreciate those captions. And when we provide UDescribe, I also heard from the middle school teachers who are teaching language learners, and language learners really like to use UDescribe, so that UDescribe describes behaviors and actions they can learn from it. So those are something I also wanted to point out. And the UDescribe, the pages that once you describe it, not only you have to come to UDescribe site to see it, that its embedding capability is that you can bring UDescribe to your page. So when you click it, that UDescribe is describing it on your page. So I'm hoping people are making good use of it, and that we are really working on the release of the UDescribe X to become more of a UDescribe more official very soon, within probably in 2 months. That's a lot of work we have done. The charity called it UDescribe X with lots of new AI features. And one of the features we are releasing is the human in the loop. So AI creates a lot of work to reduce the human labor, capturing the text on screens and process the scene segmentations and insert some of the basic, the prompted AI produce. However, current AI is not accurate enough, so that human involvement will be really helpful. We have designed the website where that the pre-processed ones are the very well, serving, reducing cognitive load and the time to produce. So we might be able to produce a lot more descriptions much faster. And in that way, we can really, catch up with the wish list. And when we are designing the user interface, that we kind of thought that it's a targeting sighted volunteer, but Charity told us that the blind users are also editing there. So we really need to make it screen readers editable too, and color choices. So we learned a lot that even though we thought that site was more targeting sighted volunteers, to revise some of the AI versions, that we put a lot of thoughts into it. And so once it released, I hope that a lot more volunteers and users can make use of UDescribe page too.
Yeah, that's always about every fifth meeting I say out loud, what I want for UDescribe is that the BVI community will be able to add audio descriptions themselves, and that everything we do and every piece that we add, is towards that goal. And in the past year or so, we also have included the deaf-blind community. They were very excited about the text-to-speech capabilities, as well as another project where we will also pull the captions for them as well. And those will be available as a track in UDescribe. So it's we are always pushing as far as we can go, and with Ability Central, we have made many of those goals a reality.
This is Antonio, and from the user side on UDescribe, I'm very happy that Ilmi and Charity have reached out to me recently, and I don't know what's going on internally, but I think it sounds like being even more keyboard driven might be a goal. It's something that I don't try to go and record as of now, but if I can put the thing into a record mode and just press space bar and hold it, for instance, and that releases the mic and pauses the video. So being more keyboard driven, even more than it is now, and being more discoverable, so that, and that's something and we've been chatting about, so that if I go in and I want to know whenever an origami video is posted, I can be notified of that and watch that video as soon as it comes out, described, and sharing and things like that, to make it more discoverable, more usable, and more accessible. I think that's a natural direction.
Awesome. What about our friends at PeerBots?
Yeah, this is Molly. So I mentioned briefly before, so with our Ability Central funding this year, we are working on creating a marketplace for content. So as it stands, PeerBots users can create any kind of content they want. So for example, if you're a speech therapist and you're working on a lesson on pronouncing a certain letter or words, you could create a whole lesson about that within the app easily. However, not everybody has the time and the expertise to do that. So we are creating both the marketplace, so the tech side, so that's John, and then my end of things is helping people create the content. So like I mentioned, maybe it's a picture book that we're uploading as a lesson that someone then can download onto their device and use it. And then part of that will also be sharing content between users. So people can choose to share what they've created with other educators and families and therapists and whomever else wants to use them. Potentially being able to sell them in the future. So if someone is putting in the work to create that content, sort of like if you're an educator, I don't know that anybody here is, teachers pay teachers or something like that, where, it's user created content that people are purchasing from each other. So that's sort of the long-term goal, and just getting it out there so that people can use the tool without being overwhelmed or having that cognitive load, like Ilmi talks about, of having to also create the content in order to use the application.
Wonderful. I love hearing about, just moving forward and what you all have coming down the pipeline next, whether that is expanding your content libraries and engaging with the community on a larger scale, or engaging with other communities like what you describe in the deafblind community. It's a great example of how, again, something created for one community with some slight alterations can absolutely be applied to others that may not be quite as, that some that are obvious and some that aren't. We had a conversation last week about a K through 5 STEM curriculum that was created that's actually really great for high school students with disabilities, for a STEM curriculum that, had there not been someone with a high school student with a disability in the room, it may not have been, the crossover may not have ever happened, but since there was, it has. And I think that's just a testament to everyone being their authentic selves and bringing all of who they are to the table so that we can create products and create experiences that really work for everyone. And that can, if they don't work for everyone, then as they are, then they can be tweaked a little bit or made available in a way that someone can take the open source data from a project and do something that is accessible for their community. So we are winding down on our presentation here. We have a few more minutes. I want to open the floor up to questions from our audience if there are any. But if not, we can go ahead and log off a little bit early today. Some thank yous coming in the chat. So thank you from us to you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. And it's been a lovely conversation. Looks like we do have one hand raised. Go ahead and please feel free.
Yeah, Chamin here. I'm a parent of 2 autistic kids. So yeah, for me, it's like, I would say they're disabled, but they're different. So there's no question of inclusion, their family. So what happens is, okay, then when they were like 3 years old, like just diagnosed, they had trouble speaking. So I kind of created a flashcard app for them. Then right now they have trouble following time. So I had to create a timer for them. So these kind of things you have to do for them so that it makes their lives easy. They get scolded if they don't do things, and that's not great. So then what happens is we usually have a community of other parents who have similar kids. So we share this stuff with them. So from your session, I learned a lot of things on what I am doing and how I could probably make things better. And I had not thought of sharing things at the source level because everybody I meet are like non-programmers. So they just ask you, can you install this for me? Or can you just make that for me as well? So maybe I could go beyond that and just share everything and get somebody else who can bridge that gap somewhere else. So I learned a lot of things. Anything you can tell me from your experiences that helps me would be great. I learned a lot already, but just in case.
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you want to gain more resources to learn about programming. Is that correct?
No, like if you have any like insights or tips for somebody who tries to create solutions for like kids with development disabilities or like small communities of people.
Oh, I see. How to develop smaller communities.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and jump in. I think just your talking about what you're doing is a great way to get it out there. You really never know who's listening and you never know who is in the room. And quite honestly, having the bravery to talk about something that is that may not match the experience of everyone else is a big step. And a lot of the times, all the encouragement that someone else in the room who may be going through the same thing needs to come forth with their experiences as well. And I think your idea of the fact that you are even taking the time to create the resources that your children need is amazing in and of itself, and multiple steps further than a lot of people go. And so being able to share those things, and it looks like Molly dropped in the chat, the Uplift Accelerator might be able to help. So putting yourselves in rooms with people who share the same perspective or share similar perspectives and have similar questions is another great way to see what resources are out there. So you're doing it. You're doing the thing. So some applause to you. Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. Just one word before leaving. Like you had the best preparation of all the sessions I attended this MozFest. Like on time and everything ready by the time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love that. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here with us today as our MozFest Wrangler, and thank you to everyone for joining us. We are 1 minute over now, but thank you for joining us for our conversation today. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you all did too. And we do have a recording, so all of this will be available on the Ability Central website and through our social media channels as well. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.